Up and welcome back to another episode of Gizmo Slip Tech. Today we're doing the MSI Raider 18HX with an RTX 5080. We've got a whole bunch of things planned for today, as you can see, and we'll have to see how MSI's laptops stack up against the Scar 18 and Legion Pro 7i, which I've already reviewed, as well as the Asus Strix G18. And we're going to go over the biggest pros and cons right now. So let's take a look at the laptop that we'll be reviewing today. This is the MSI Raider 18HX AI, Intel Core Ultra 9 285HX, which will be the first time that we'll be testing that today. RTX 5080 in here, 175 watts, 64 gigs DDR5, 6400 according to the spec sheet, and a 4 terabyte SSD, UHD 120 Hz mini LED. So notice the nice upgrades you get on this compared to a lot of the competition. 64 gigs is a nice upgrade. Usually 32 is standard, and it's supposed to be 6400. And then it's a 4 terabyte SSD. All right, so that's also much bigger than normal, which is important. A lot of games these days are very large. Some of them are up to 300 gigs or more for one game now. So obviously the biggest thing here is that it's a UHD 4K plus 120 Hz mini LED. So, and I don't believe they've improved the bloom on this. So that's probably one of the biggest cons, is that this display does have a lot of bloom with bright objects on dark backgrounds. I would say that that's probably the biggest con for me, and the fact that this also does not have G-Sync or Advanced Optimus. Now, I don't think you necessarily have to have those on every single laptop, but when it comes to a 4K display, I feel like the crispiness and the smoothness of the gameplay, in particular when you're getting like between 40 and 60 FPS at the 4K resolution, in some of the latest games, you're going to see those screen tears happen sometimes, or at least I think you will. All right, so let's talk about the best competing laptops that are on the market for the MSI Raider 18HX as well. The MSI Vector A18HX, and they also have an Intel version of this, but with this one you get a Ryzen 9 9955HX, which I think is a little bit better CPU than the Intel, and it's got an RTX 5080 with a bit slower RAM, only 5200, DDR5 5200, and a QHD 240 Hz display. So I think that display is actually going to be a much better display than the one they've included on the Raider. So at least for most gamers. Now, unless you're like a Photoshop video editing enthusiast that really wants 4K in an 18-inch chassis, then maybe the Raider is the one for you. So it really depends on what you're looking for. But the nice thing here is the price tag. Right now it's only $26.99, which is a full $1,000 cheaper than the Raider, and it's the same GPU. So, I mean, in terms of value, the Vector is obviously designed to cater more towards the value with, there's no light bar in front, but it has the same external chassis as the Raider. So I feel like from a value perspective, the Vector is likely to be a better buy. The Raider, I would say, is going to be the flagship for most people because it's going to be not overly priced too much compared to the other top flagships, but it's going to vary from what you need in a laptop. The Strix G18, this is probably one of my favorite 18-inch laptops on a more reasonable budget. Basically, we're looking at the Intel Core Ultra 9 275HX RTX 5080, 32 gigs of DDR5 5600, and a 2 terabyte SSD, QHD plus 240 Hz, 500 nits, 100% P3 color gamut. The nice thing about this one is that it is quite a bit cheaper than a lot of the other top spec, most premium laptops. Well, this one does have a lot of nice premium features. Like it's got a 360-degree light bar with a toolless bottom to open the bottom up, and it's got a very nice cooling system in it, still the same one as the Scar 18, and it's got some pretty nice ports as well on it. So the toolless bottom even works for the SSDs. So I really like the Strix G18 from a premium features as well as ease of use perspective, and it's not grossly overpriced for the money. Like it's more reasonably priced for what you're getting inside of the chassis. Also, Razer Blade 18. This is another 4K plus 240 hertz though here, so not 120 hertz. It's going to be a lot better for esports. The 120 hertz on the Raider, it's just not enough for me for esports. So for esports gamers out there, I don't think the Raider 18HX is likely the one you're going to want to go for. Whereas the Blade 18, if you're going for a 4K and you want to play esports quite well, well, this one's not only a 240 hertz 4K plus, it's 440 hertz full HD plus. So if you really want to go to esports focus, you can certainly do that with the Blade 18, but the Blade 18 also costs even more than the Raider. Alienware Area 51M with the Intel Core Ultra 9 275HX. Now this one has a 5090 in it, and notice how it's only $200 more than the Raider right now. So in terms of value, the Raider is definitely going to provide less value, less bang for your buck than the Area 51M. And I'm not sure what the 5080 version costs. Let me see if I can. Right now, $34.49. So it is undercutting the price of the Raider by about $350, but it's not the cheapest 5080 on the market, that's for sure. Now, another one to consider, of course, would be the Scar 18, which is very similar to the G18, just slight premium upgrades. But I would say you're after the most premium for the most premium laptop for your money, you could consider getting the 3D-enabled Legion 9i with an RTX 5080 and a 275HX. Of course, you could go for the 5090 version of any of these, or the 5070 Ti if you want even more value or bang for the buck. The Legion 9i, Intel Core Ultra 9, 275HX, RTX 5080. Downside here is it's slower RAM, and the big upside though is that it has a 3D naked eye without 3D glasses called, like, I think they're calling it like naked eye 3D or something like that. But basically, it tracks your eyes and uses a lenticular display to send those pixels to your eyeballs at left and right alternating to split that light and make you see 3D without any kind of like wearing glasses fatigue, or like a VR headset usually weighs a lot on your head and clamps down on your head, and this would allow 3D without needing any kind of external headset apparatus to basically go on your head. So and I have seen this effect on an Asus and Acer laptops in the past, and I did like the 3D. It was very clear, and yeah, but for certain types of games it's not going to work very well. I don't think first-person shooters would be that great with it, but 3D adventure games like Elden Ring would probably be amazing with it. I have to actually test it out though. I'm hoping Lenovo will send me one of these to test sometime soon. But you can see this is one of the most expensive 18-inch laptops with 3856 for the price right now. And that's even with it being partially on sale. I mean, there's a lot of sales going on right now. The biggest pros here are high performance chassis with a very high quality chassis, great keyboard, a mouse, good port selection, and your performance should be on point with this chassis. You should be getting top tier performance with this one. We'll see how we are today in our actual tests. Biggest cons: the lack of G-Sync and Advanced Optimus. It doesn't feel great when you're spending nearly $4,000 on a laptop. I feel like that is something MSI needs to put in here, especially on a 4K display where you're more likely to get screen tearing because of the increased resolution and the lower average FPS. The other thing is the bloom on this 4K mini LED display is one of the most pronounced blooms that I've seen on any gaming laptop. And so we'll take a look at a bloom test today as well to show you that. Now, if you're generally dealing with brighter content, video games in brighter environments, you're not going to notice a bloom ever, pretty much, because it only happens on dark backgrounds with light objects. Now, if you like playing horror games with like darkness and then fire effects or flashlights and stuff, the bloom is not going to be very good. It's going to be very noticeable in those types of situations. And for that reason, I think the mini LED in this one is one of the worst out of the mini LED options in the 18-inch chassis. I don't think MSI has improved it in the last couple of years. So that's probably the biggest con to me. So let's get into the unboxing. So this is the external of the box. You see Raider 18HX AI A2XWIG. Got nice MSI branding on here. Here is a quick start guide, a warranty guide card, Dragon Forge Dominance, thank you for supporting MSI, saying to register your product for exclusive early bird benefits with the QR code. So I wonder what they come with, I don't know. MSI's customer help support line here, 1-888-447-6564. And it's Monday through Sunday, 24 hours. So it's actually really nice if it's a 24-hour support line. And this comes with a 12 months limited warranty. All right, so it's going to cover most of the things that break on a laptop, at least during the first 12 months. You can also see the initial scan card here. You can see where all the ports are, the names are, and all that. You can pause that and take a detailed look at this if you'd like. But we'll be going over all of this in detail in today's video. And let's go to our top down. So the laptop's inside of here. This is quite a nice material. Got a metal top deck with a LED RGB uh, logo here from MSI. This, I believe, is plastic, though it does feel like high quality plastic. And in some senses, I don't mind the plastic here on the back because this is where normally a laptop would get very, very hot. And this allows the laptop to stay cooler to the touch at least, you know. But it does, I believe this makes it a bit harder to open the way they've designed this. So opening this up, you can see what the laptop looks like on the inside. And I do think that this keyboard feels excellent overall. We'll talk about the keyboard and trackpad in a little while. Notice that there's a fingerprint sensor here. There's also Windows Hello on the camera at the top. We'll lift this up. Let's take a look at the inside of the box. So we've got our MSI power adapter. This is a 400 watt power adapter, though I would say it's still fairly portable. This is a Chicone 400 watt with your MSI power plug. Then we've got our cable here. Let's see how long this power adapter cable is. Opening this up, pulling it apart. All right, so this is about 4 feet long, not particularly long. This power cable, though, is longer, about 5.5 feet for this cable. So that's a nice length. So we're looking at 7 pounds, 14.1 ounces for just the laptop. With the power adapter and cable, we're looking at 10 pounds, 13 ounces. So the power adapter and the cable is almost 3 pounds. So all total, you're looking at almost 11 pounds in terms of total carry weight, which is, I think, the highest we've seen so far. Let's go ahead and do the flex test. Going along the top, do it on the outside of the screen first. Definitely some flex, especially in the middle on the back of the screen. Hinge feels pretty firm. And for an 18-inch chassis, there's surprisingly little wobble. There is some wobble though. Let's do our flex test on the main chassis now. All right, so no flex, no flex. Ooh, some flex right here, even on the wrist rest, which is, I think this could be a little stiffer, but it still feels pretty good. Going on the left side. No flex in the wrist rest, but right here by the touchpad, there's more flex than I'd recommend. I'd recommend them build another support under the center middle here, and that'll help with the wrist rest some as well. No flex on the left. Going up to this left side, there's definitely some flex here still. Overall, I would say this is a little bit more flexy than I would like in certain areas, but it still feels pretty good when you're actually using the laptop. It's stiff enough to feel good when you're using the laptop, which is probably the most important. I think it's fine. I've got a SteelSeries keyboard here. I love the spacing and the lighting on this keyboard. It feels really good. And let's see how far back the hinge can go. So that's the furthest it can extend out, which is not bad. It's just, it's not 100%, not 180 degrees, which some people would prefer, but I don't think that's a problem. I think that's plenty far enough back for my taste. All right, so let's go ahead and do our removing of the bottom. This is a very interesting underside design. You'll notice we have a bit of a, I would describe this as like almost a thermal bump, just like the Blade series. It really comes up because the front is pretty minimal. Then the about 1/3 back, it comes up a 1/4 inch. And then these back 2 corners also raise up another, I don't know, 1/4 inch or so. So it really gives you that two-stage look, boom, 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 or a 3-stage look. The rear here, I think, wraps around. Okay, and looking at all the screws laying around here, I think they're all the same size. So you don't have to worry about putting a screw through your motherboard if you put it in the wrong hole, I don't think. I gotta say, they did a creative job with these rubber feet. Looks cool. I like the way the underside is designed. All right, so there's the bottom off, and that's what we got going on the inside here. So the biggest difference between the Raider and the Titan series is that this utilizes heat pipes instead of a vapor chamber. But notice that they still managed to have a PCIe Gen 5 cooling loop added. Love that. You've got a Gen 4 SSD here. Looks like a slot for another SSD could be put in at this point in the motherboard, but it doesn't have the receivers put in here, nor the mounting bracket. Another SSD slot looks like it could be put in here. So 1, 2, 3 slots, 4 slots potentially on the motherboard itself, but currently you could only put in 2 SSDs here and here. Now for our Wi-Fi, we have the killer. It's a killer brand. Killer BE1750X. But it's also an Intel killer. Intel killer, so on it. That's interesting. Let's evaluate the thermal design of this laptop. 2 giant fans. These are very big fans with a lot of heat exhaust, left and right side, with big, thick heat fins here. Heat fin stacks, which are nice to see. The cooling focus of this laptop is definitely on the GPU because we have 5 heat pipes going to the GPU with a dedicated heat pipe right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heat pipes in this laptop, which is maybe the most I've ever seen in a laptop. Maybe, I don't know. That's a lot of heat pipes. And it's a pretty intricate cooling system. I imagine it is going to work just fine though. I'm not anticipating any problems in terms of cooling. This looks like it's going to be plenty cool enough for the 175 GPU power limit. Let's take a look at the RAM in this laptop. 32 gigs, PC5 6400, and it's Micron. There is only 2 SODIMM slots, 1, 2, not 4. So I know some of the people really want to be able to take the RAM to crazy high amounts, but on this one, you're not going to be able to. I think the only question I have about the internals is, are these 2 SSD slots actually, can you populate them? Because it looks like you would need to solder the connectors to here and you'd be able to do it, but it's not that way out of the box. I wonder if a production model unit would have that. Maybe. All right, 99 watt hour battery. So we're looking at max battery capacity. Nice to see. You're also looking at downward firing speakers here, but there's also holes in the upward part of the chassis to get some upward firing speaker action as well. So I like that. Overall, motherboard design, cooling design, I'll give it a giant thumbs up. It seems like a good laptop design overall for cooling and everything. You can leave this part on when you take the bottom off. It does not wrap around underneath it this time. So that's a lot better design. And you can see that there's a lot of different display options available on their website, though it's not actually listed for sale anywhere, at least that I can find in the United States. So we do have 1 Gen 5 and 1 Gen 4. And so there's only 2 slots. Even though on the motherboard we saw 2 extra potential slots, they just did not populate with connectors. Which is interesting. We get an IR Full HD 30 frames per second 1080p with 3D noise reduction, which is interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the actual ports. On the right side, we have our 2-in-1 headset combo port, USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A. Then we have our 2 Thunderbolt 5s here. That's going to include power delivery 3.1, as well as DisplayPort support. On the rear of the device, you can see we have our power plug-in, HDMI 2.1, and our 2.5 gigabit Ethernet that is downward facing. On the right side, we have our Kensington lock port. Then we have our USB 3.2 Gen 2s, two of them, and a full-size SD card slot. So this will be, I guess this is the left, yeah, this is the left side, and absolutely excellent ports on here with the latest tech on all the ports and all of the ports supporting the highest levels. So overall port selection, excellent. All right. So no, this is the advanced section of the BIOS, but this is before you enable the advanced mode of the BIOS, and there's like a very specific key input you need to use to get into the advanced mode. It's like the thing is the previous key combo that we used to use was right control, but they have replaced the control key with the Copilot plus button. And so now there's no combo. Let me try using the same key combo. Ha! It still worked. Yeah, so Copilot, right shift, left alt, F2 to do it. Okay. All right, so we'll at least go through the menu on everything in here. So if people who are interested can see the BIOS and what options MSI is providing. In particular, I'm curious if we see any XMP memory profiles and undervolting support. Those are probably the two most important things that I'd be looking for right now. So Intel Speed Shift, ERP Lot 3 support. There's a lot of stuff on here that I won't know what it is or what it does exactly. But Intel virtualization, C states, allow BIOS downgrade if you want to reverse your BIOS. User scenario can be balanced mode or performance mode. Let's put it into performance mode. Don't even know what that does necessarily. Firmware Windows Update. Ooh, can you update this through Windows Update now for the firmware? That's a big step forward if they're doing Windows updates for their firmware now, because that was a big problem. I had a laptop get bricked. I had to send it back to MSI because the BIOS update failed. RC ACPI settings, advanced connectivity configuration. There's a lot of stuff in here. Settings for Ukraine and Russia. There's specific control settings for them. That's interesting too. These Wi-Fi settings. There's so many settings in the MSI BIOS. That's crazy. We're gonna go back. CPU configuration. Nice. Let's see what we got in here. Efficiency and performance core information. Efficiency cores, performance cores, CPU flex ratio, active performance cores, active efficiency cores. So you can disable your efficiency cores right here. Some people would want to do that. Legacy game compatibility mode. Interesting. Efficiency cores will become parked when scroll lock LED is on and unparked when LED is off. So if you want to decide to enable or disable your efficiency cores on the fly, you can actually turn it on and off. That is a cool BIOS setting. I've never seen that on a laptop before. Being able to turn on and off your efficiency cores at will, which some people were saying that can affect your game performance. I still haven't run the tests on that, but that would be very interesting. CPU power management control, configure TDP configurations, enable configurable TDP, power limit 1, power limit 2. So pretty sure this is the long and that's the short. So 200 watts is the long, 220 is the short, I believe. 128 seconds is the time it can go. So you can do your own if you want to set it to be higher. But I mean, this thing can't really do anything too crazy in terms of without maybe like I did see 210 watts. We'll get to that when we get to the Cinebench R23 performance, but and 24. But it's not the same level of cooling as like the water cooler. We'll have to see what it actually averages over the long haul. But it's a good CPU performance level, but not going to be insane without additional help. I don't overclocking lock disabled. You can enable it. Power management control. Undervolting would be in here, but I'm not seeing energy performance gain. What does that setting do? It's cool that you can configure your TDP options right inside the BIOS. I'm not going to lie. System agent configuration, memory configuration, overclocking. Ooh, real-time memory tuning, real-time memory timing, but basically it's tuning. Yeah, that's cool. So you can create your own custom memory settings right here. So you could tune your timings to be tighter if you wanted to. Right now they're CL52, but you could lower them and see how fast your RAM could go. That is cool. You know, most XMG is currently the only other one that I know that lets you get down to this level of granular settings for your memory, which is it's just very, very cool to see. Graphics configuration, skip scanning of external graphics card. Interesting. So they have some stuff in here directly for external graphics card support. Thermal configuration, CPU thermal configuration. Interesting. Overclocking feature enabled. Let's see what it, undervolt protection disabled. And let's see where we would do the undervolting. Processor, P-core adaptive voltage offset. Voltage offset, P-core offset. So this is where you apply your undervolt right here. It's in middle of volts range, minus 500 to 500. And the offset prefix right now is plus. Interesting. So I'm pretty sure you'd want to do a minus here. Unless you change this to minus and then you can just put a number in. You got to be careful with that. I would do small changes until you've confirmed which direction you need to go. But yeah, this is basically where you would undervolt your processor, your memory, your ring, your GTA, and your SA and GU. So, but most importantly, you probably want to do your processor, your ring, and the GT I think is the iGPU, so you probably don't have to worry about that as much, but SA, I would do that a little bit. But your processor and ring be the two most important, I think, to improve your Cinebench performance. Switchable graphics. Man, this BIOS is insane. If you love customizing your PC, this is definitely one of the laptops to consider just from a customization standpoint. But yeah, they've got so many things in here. But the most important is that they have system memory XMP profiles, which is going to help performance, especially if you want to go to like 7200 mega transfers, and the undervolting menu. That's the other option in here that's really cool. So I appreciate that, MSI. That is awesome. Let's go ahead and discard changes and exit, because we don't really need to change anything else here in the BIOS, I don't think. Okay, that booted up pretty fast. Beautiful. And we'll test the fingerprint reader and the face cam. So let's go ahead and get started. Scan my face. Success. Now let's do fingerprint scanning. Doing the fingerprint. And let's do a test. Let's do 3 tests of each. Fingerprint sensor seems to be working great. All right, let's see about the Windows Hello. Why? Interesting. So it doesn't even try to do your face unless you ask it to do it. It does whatever you did last. That's interesting. Can I do it from here? You can. So you can do the fingerprint sensor either way, but your face won't be targeted unless you go back in here and press the face button. Just a little bit annoying. So you probably either use your finger or your face, one of the two. Probably not both though, because alternating between them takes extra clicks, which is not great. Time to do our webcam test. So let's go ahead and check out the camera quality. Whoa. All right. Looks like it's a bit not smooth FPS wise. Seems to be jumping around a little bit, but that might be just nothing. I don't know. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a couple of photos. The background coloration is really messing with the camera's colors. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the results there. That actually looks pretty good. You can see a lot of detail on the Lumix. You can almost read this, so that's impressive. That's sad. It's not that much detail. It's a lot of sharpening and kind of blurriness going on here. Um, you can see the XMG logo in the back. I mean, it's pretty decent quality for just some Skype calls, but not going to be enough to really let you replace like a live stream webcam. Well, I guess maybe if you're just doing it casually. Okay, let's see how loud the typing is. Let's see how loud the typing is. Okay, so I'm talking now, and now I'm typing now. Let's see, does that affect the audio quality too much? So you can definitely hear the typing when you're using the webcam, but it's not terrible. Not great either, though, so it's okay. Webcam, I would give it solid 7 point. It needs to be better still on a 4,000 something dollar laptop. I'd say the webcam can definitely still be better. You know, it's screenshots of shame time. Sadly, this MSI did have some screenshots of shame. Let's see what they are. Here's a double pop-up that happened when I plugged an SSD in here. This thing popped up. Do you want to scan the USB for threats? And then the other one is Norton. Boost your PC gaming experience with the powerful protection from Norton. Popped up again here, and then it said threats detected. Turn on your VPN or enable auto VPN, which turns on when you connect to a secure or compromised Wi-Fi. Basically, if you don't have a VPN, it throws an ad at you for a VPN, which again, it's a brand new laptop. You paid a lot of money for it. Why are you paying to get advertised to? It's too much. You should not be putting antivirus pop-ups on your expensive premium gaming laptops. I'll keep repeating it. A lot of brands are doing it. They should not. They should stop. Okay, software evaluation. Let's check it out. Now we might need to do an update here. We'll see. Currently, pretty much everything that you need to do inside of here can be done inside of the MSI Center application. The thing with this application is there's no advanced Optimus, so you basically have to use this to control whether you're in dedicated graphics mode, hybrid mode, or integrated graphics mode. And I do love that they have an integrated graphics mode in case you want to have better battery life and have guaranteed that the NVIDIA GPU is turned off. You have the MSI AI engine, which you can use to theoretically optimize your GPU performance even better than ever. It doesn't really do anything if you're already in extreme performance mode. Might be better than balanced. Need to actually do detailed testing on that if the AI engine works. So there's 3 primary modes: Eco Silent mode for longest battery as well as quieter fan noise. Balanced mode provides a medium fan noise and moderate levels of performance. And extreme performance mode is like maximum possible performance. Fans will ramp up very quickly and it'll try to keep the temperatures down. Now, at any point you want to, you can press the key right here for max fans. So you just press FN and up arrow. FN and up arrow. Okay, there it goes. And that turns on max fans. You can also pause play music, enable or disable a crosshair, and put the laptop to sleep, I believe is what that does. Or at least turns off the display. Yeah, it put the laptop to sleep very quickly. So laptop sleep, crosshair, pause play, and max fans. That's a nice extra double functionality there. Usually FN plus arrow keys is like the home end, page up, page down. But the fact that you can add the crosshair with the click of a button, that's a giant thumbs up. I love that. It's inside MSI True Color that has this crosshair option. You can change between these different models of the crosshair, which is super nice, and even colors if you want it to be red, blue, pink, yellow, whatever contrasts well with the game that you're playing. And just a red dot. Oh wow, you can change the size too to make it bigger, smaller, different shape, medium. Depends on the game, but I like it. And you can also shift it left and right just a little bit. Crosshair feature here is really cool. You have an app sync. I'm not sure what's going to sync between. You have desktop partition. Interesting. I screen calibration with the X-Rite. And then you have options, always on top, task tray menu, app syncing. Disable crosshair hotkey, interesting. So there's quite a few options inside of MSI True Color. And of course, that's not even factoring in the actual just true color functionality. Okay. Display panel power saver. So this is setting it to 60 hertz refresh rate when you disable, when you unplug the laptop. It's a nice feature to have. And you have USB power share. This is going to allow you to keep your laptop USBs enabled for charging your phone. GPU switch button, display overdrive to increase the response rate of the display just by a little bit. Windows key, disable or enable. And when you press the hibernate or sleep button, does it go to hibernate or to sleep, which is nice. When you close the lid, do you want it to go to sleep or do you want it to do nothing? You can also reset all these settings to a general settings amount. You have a hardware monitor now with your GPU information, CPU information, temperatures here. It's not enough detail to really utilize at a professional level, but it's enough to do just your basic stuff. So you have MSI True Color, which lets you set your targeted color gamut. You want sRGB, anti-blue, gamer, office, movie. So changing it to P3, Adobe, those are probably the two most common ones. And you can kind of see how it shifts the color spectrum around, shifting between those two. It's not going to be like huge, but some people will definitely love doing anti-blue or trying to do an Adobe or P3 color specific focus on their color gamut. So it's a nice feature to have. I just like the Adobe one probably the best. Ambient link. I believe this is for connecting other Steel Series types of light and RGB light bars and other stuff. And you can sync to different games and different color effects with your keyboard on the MSI laptop. AI noise cancellation, which can be really cool to help prevent like keyboard noise in your recordings. Performance analysis, let's just try clicking this. Interesting. Click to start diagnosing. Interesting. MSI AI engine is currently off. But this says, use AI to provide real-time optimized system adjustments based on usage context. MSI AI engine eliminates the need for you to fiddle with various settings, saving time and effort. I should actually try to test that, but in general, I just don't even bother testing the AI stuff because it's almost always worthless in my past detailed testing. So waiting for it to improve enough to be worth testing again. So software-wise, I would say MSI Center works fine most of the time. The thing about MSI Center is I don't like the way the control scheme is set up. Let me show you. So the way this is set up, you have to click this features button and then you get like the tabs. And I feel like these tabs, some of them are actually legit important and other parts of the tabs are like super unimportant and you basically would never go there. So that's why I'm like, I feel like they should replace these main tabs with like user scenario should be one of them up here. Hardware monitoring does not need to be up here. General settings should be up here as one of the main tabs. And then maybe support should be under here. Member sender should probably be under here. Um, but user scenario and general settings and true color are probably the three most important settings, and you have to click twice to get into each of those. So software design wise, they need to improve the flow of their software to make it flow better in terms of actual usability. But overall, it actually works fine to change your settings, in my experience so far, without a problem. Display test. Let's see, under MSI True Color, what did we test? We tested the Adobe profile, and this is what we got. 91. So keep in mind, my Spider 5 Elite, underrepresents the color gamut by like 7-8%. So we're talking 99% of sRGB, 80, let's just call it 85 Adobe, and 84% of the P3 color gamut, which is not that great. Considering it should be, I think, 100% P3. So let's switch it to the display P3 setting for our next test, and we'll retest one more time. Let's check out our brightness though. 122 nits brightness at the darkest, so the dimmest, that's not very good. That's still very bright for a dim. So keep in mind that if you need to use this in a like pitch black environment, that's the lowest you're going to get it to go. Then under the max brightness, we got 603 sustained nits, which is about what we see in a lot of the mini LED panels, and 603,000 to 1 contrast ratio, which is excellent. So very contrasty, very bright. Let's go ahead and do our test one more time now that we've switched to Adobe P3. And let's see what the color gamut shows us now. Okay, so this test certainly a lot better now that we've switched the true color over to the P3 color gamut. We got more than 100% of sRGB, 84, which translates to 91% of the Adobe RGB, and then 87 P3, which translates to 94% of the P3. Sorry, 93% of Adobe, 94% of the P3, and over 100% of the sRGB. And so, I mean, we're talking about really, really good overall uh, contrast. Wow, is very high, and brightness is better as well on the P3. So I feel like this display is tuned better in the P3 color gamut inside of True Color. So I would recommend setting this display to the P3 color gamut section because it's going to be a brighter display and more colorful as well. So it just looks, I just noticed that the display looks a little less blue and it looks a little bit more reddish in terms of tones when you switch it to the P3 color gamut. That's the main downside slash difference. So display test is good. Let's go ahead and do a bloom test. So that is mini LED bloom. If I do this to an OLED panel, which I suppose I can show you that as well side by side. So I've got the Zephyrus G16 with the 5090 here. That's an OLED bloom versus the mini LED bloom side by side. Let me turn this off. So you can see the bloom on the Raider is quite extreme. The bloom on the OLED is still present though. There's still, when you move the mouse around especially, it's very visible. Though it's not as visible as on the mini LED. Oh, also, my OLED screen was not at max brightness. So now my OLED screen's at max brightness. This is the Raider. This is the Zephyrus. Zephyrus on the left, Raider on the right. And let me pop over to the Scar here. And here you can see how good the Scar handles the bloom. There's very, very little bloom on the Scar. There is some though. It's still visible, especially when you move it around. You can still see some bloom, but it's very minimal on the Scar. It's almost as good as an OLED in terms of bloom. By contrast, again, the bloom on the Raider and the bloom on the OLED. So I think the bloom is the most manageable. So here's the Scar on the right, and here's the Zephyrus G16 on the left. I would say the screen looks blacker on the Zephyrus, and the bloom is actually probably more noticeable on the Zephyrus. So I would say the bloom is worse probably on the OLED, which is interesting. But that's mainly just because there's almost no bloom currently on the Scar series. Let me see what zone mode I'm in. I'm in one zone backlight mode. Let's try multi-zone strong. Again, there's still some. I'm at max brightness right now. There's very minimal bloom on the Scar mini LED. Let's put them side by side, the Raider and the Scar together. Okay, so right there and right there. Both are at 100% brightness. Both are basically in full color and everything mode. But the main difference here is the Scar has 2024 local dimming zones, which basically lets it have a whole lot less bloom to the display. Now, when you actually put these two displays side by side and play something, they'll look very similar in terms of color in bright environments, just these dark environments. The Scar handles the bloom so much better in the 2025 model than past generations. Bloom test, big success, I think. Very interesting result. 8 to 64 RAM speed test. Okay, let's take a look at the memory speed. Very fast, 95.6 for the read, 90.5 for the write, 93 for the copy. Those are very fast scores. The latency is pretty good. 114, it's not amazing, but it's not terrible. L0, L1, L2, L3 caches. These are not as important as these top line. Very fast RAM, above average speed. I do think that this is going to be a good memory performance if you need high memory speed. Looks like I already ran the speedometer test, got 40.5 on the speedometer test for the Raider, which is very good. All right, so the Blender benchmark, the 285HX, only got about 470 or so, which is not great. Blender for the 5080 though, 3266 for Monster, 1827 for Junk Shop, and 1723 for Classroom, which is, I think, very good overall. It's going to be very good for Blender. All right, CrystalDiskMark. We do have a Gen 5 SSD in here. As we saw when we took it apart, there was actually 2 SSDs, right? How come there's only one drive in here? Not worried about it right now, but you should be getting a drive like this. A Gen 5, 12.1K for the read, 8.9K for the write. It's an extremely fast drive. It should be 12K for read and write. I don't know why we got 8.9, I believe, for the write, but I've noticed this happens a lot in CrystalDiskMark. It tests lower for the write speed. So overall, extremely fast SSD. I'm not worried about the speeds. It's a very, very fast SSD. All right, so let's do Cinebench R23. This is with dedicated GPU mode. Okay, so I'm trying to be clear because MSI actually changes the CPU performance you get depending on if you're in GPU only mode or integrated GPU only mode. So if you are looking to get the best CPU performance, then you'll still get good CPU performance in GPU mode, but integrated GPU mode will be able to ramp to a higher wattage and therefore also, I guess, a higher temperature, but it's really the wattage that causes the higher temperature. The power limit you can see in GPU only mode only went up to 141 watts on average. I believe that average is good, but it might not be. Let's see here. For the 5-minute thermal snapshot, we got 143.5 watts. So right around 140 watts is all you're going to get with the GPU only mode. That said, we are almost thermal throttling. We are thermal throttling 100 degrees Celsius right here at 100 and currently 170 watts, but it keeps going up and down. Oh, Actually, it's 151 watts on average. 151.4 watts at the 5-minute mark. All right, so 35,000 for a 10-minute run. Run 2, this one got 36.4 thousand. 36.4 thousand. And so that, I mean, that's a very good score, but it's not as high as like the 38s we're getting on the Scar or the Neo. Both of those are getting, closer to 38, 39, and that's without undervolting or much optimization. Single core 2143 is excellent. The actual clock speeds here, it's too long after to tell. Cinebench R24, we did 2 runs, 2171 and 130 for the single core. Then I did another run, and we got 2184 and then 130 for the single core. Now, when I actually went to integrated GPU only mode, R23 boosted up to 37,000, 2195, so a little bit higher on both. And then on R24, we got 2177 and 134. So integrated GPU only mode will get you just a few percentage points faster CPU performance. I wish I had done a average wattage during integrated only mode, but I mean, if we're almost thermal throttling, or basically thermal throttling at 143 watts in dedicated GPU mode, it's not going to get much better, because the simple fact is we're thermal throttling. And if you're thermal throttling, it won't make too big of a difference. Now, if you were to put an air cooler under this laptop, you probably could go quite a bit faster. That's where you can get 38, 39,000. And undervolt it, probably break into the 40s with this laptop. External air cooler under the laptop is going to help. Okay, so let's do Port Royale. So basically 65.3 FPS, 14,114. For Time Spy Extreme Performance mode with early drivers, we got 22,000 and 18,294 for our CPU score, which is excellent. CPU score is very memory and CPU heavy, obviously. Let's see here. Steel Nomad, we got 52.36 for the RTX 5080. Speedometer, we got 40.5. I already showed you that. I retested Time Spy with the latest drivers, and we got 152 more points. So the first test I showed you was, the first Time Spy test was on old drivers before the update, and then we went up 100 points when we went to the latest 577 drivers. Really not much of a difference, right? Here's another thermal test with Cinebench R23, and you can see it does do a little bit better here, doing 153.4 watts on average during a 10-minute run, and this is the very end of the run. You can see only 9 seconds left on the run. So yeah, averaging 4.0 or 4. P-Core 4.3, P-Core 4.5, 4.4. So some very good clock speeds on the individual P-Cores. But yeah, we're thermal throttling nonstop at 153 watts. So not too much thermal headroom, to be honest, with the CPU performance at least. Okay, so we covered all of those. It's time to do our fan noise testing, and then we're getting into the game tests. All right, so let's go ahead and, and speaker tests. All right, let's briefly go over Nahimic. So this is a way to optimize your sound with your speakers. And basically you can boost your speakers, bass, treble, or voice, which is your mids, right inside the software. Depending on what you set this to, you can turn the effects on and off. Surround sound volume stabilizer. Let's go ahead and do Peter Spacey Roar first. 87 something decibels, which is good. Very thumpy bass. And the mids and highs were reasonably clearish. The speakers are definitely improved from the last time I've tested an MSI top of the line laptop. Let's go faded A on Half-Life. That was impressively loud, 94 decibels. And there was very little distortion to the audio. Very impressive. Let's do Deuce Williams, La La Love You Like. I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I mean, these speakers are a big improvement compared to the previous generation. It's great to see MSI spending some more money on the speakers. I'm going to go with an 8.8 for rating because you got that nice bass, you got that nice moderately clear mids and highs as well with very little distortion, and you got great volume, 94 decibels as well. So that's very good volume for a gaming laptop. Giant thumbs up. Okay, good job. Let's go to our thermal testing next and see how loud these fans are. And let's get Afterburner on. So room ambient noise. It's about 47 decibels, but a little more than that, maybe like 47 and a half. Silent mode with the Raider, we're getting around 80 watts going to the GPU, 1500 boost clock, only 15 watts to the CPU. We're still hitting 80 FPS. The frame time graph is looking very consistent. I mean, that is good enough to play a lot of games quite well, especially if you lower the settings. Temperatures as well are just like, ooh, so good. Only 58 degrees and 62 on the CPU. So if you're looking to game lightweight games with no fan noise, this will get the job done. Our fan noise is basically room ambient. Right around 46.7 decibels at the lowest. Excellent. Let's go to balanced. Right, I'm expecting a lot more wattage and a lot better performance. Wow, 160, 2160 on the boost clock, 69 degrees. Let's let it saturate a little bit. So right now what's happening with the fan noise is it's going up once the temperature goes above 70. And then once the temperatures drop into the 60s again, the fan noise goes down again. But let's go ahead and see how loud it actually is. So right around 51 decibels, we're looking at 147 to 150 watts to the GPU and 53 watts, 55 watts to the CPU, 69 degrees, 74 degrees. I mean, the fans are barely running and we're keeping our temps below 70s. That's very good. Let's go ahead and go to extreme performance. So jumping up, we get 175 watts right away. Temperatures, I'm sure will go up a little bit more as well. And after running this for a minute or two, we'll switch to extreme performance with max fans, and we'll see how this goes. Fans are really ramping up now that we get into the 80s on the CPU. Fans are like, phew. Now the temperature's back in the 70s, fans are going down again. I mean, there's a lot of inconsistent fan noise here. Yeah, so basically we're alternating between about 52 decibels, 51, 52 decibels, up to about 56 decibels, depending on if the CPU temperature is spiking or not. All right, let's turn on max fans and see how we do. Whoosh. We're bouncing between 60 to 63. I'm going to say 62 decibels on max fans. That is insanely loud. Let's see what the temperatures are like, though. Maybe the temperatures are worth it. So, GPU temperatures have fallen from the 70s, like 73, down to 67. CPU temperatures are bouncing between 70s and 80s, and now we're just at 73, 71, 70, 77, 80, 82, 72, 74. So, I mean, that gives us great CPU temperatures and GPU temperatures. GPU temperatures are continuing to fall into the 60s now. 64, 63, 65, 64. All right, so there's our thermal test. Very nice. Right into the game testing. Here we go. And regarding the performance, I know some people were wondering if this is the Dragon Edition. It is not the Dragon Edition. Like I said, the Dragon Edition is a Titan, at least this version. You have to go for the Titan if you want the Dragon Edition. I believe they're sold out now. I don't think they're making it anymore. So you have to buy it used probably if you're going to get a Dragon Edition. Anyway, if you're wanting the Dragon Edition, you can still look at this one as examples of the benchmark and temperatures. Mostly the temperatures will be a little bit better though on the Titan Dragon Edition. So, because that has vapor chamber, this one has heat pipes, but they're both 18-inch chassis with similar fan sizes at least. So performance should be in the same ballpark. So we're loading into Baldur's Gate 3. We'll be testing today at max fans in extreme performance mode, dedicated GPU mode. I think we should do 4K today. We're going to do DLSS on quality ultra settings. And we are doing 4K plus, 3840 by 2400, 3, 2, 1. So 153 FPS right now, 95 for a 1% low. So far, very good 1% lows. That's a good thing, obviously. But this is showing us that at 4K, Baldur's Gate 3 is without a doubt super easy for us to run on an RTX 5080. 4K gaming, no problem. We'll find out when we get to the other tests and the other games today. I don't know. You know, maybe we're not going to get playable frames. I feel like I might want to do QHD tests and everything today too. So 153, 114. All right. Temperatures are exceptionally good, 63 degrees Celsius, 80 on the CPU right now, 77. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch our video down to QHD plus. Yeah, our performance is way higher now. Let's go ahead and see what we get. All right, we are cooking on our CPU package power now, 80, 100 degrees, or 100 watts, I mean. You know, we're going up a lot in CPU package power because at QHD Plus, we're becoming more CPU bound. And our average FPS went from 150 to 266, 267, 163. Those are excellent with very good frame time graph, very little stutters going on. Impressive. Impressive. Visually speaking, at least at this distance, like I'm sitting a little bit far back right now, I cannot see the visual difference. Let me scoot it a little closer to me. Maybe I'll be able to see the difference if I scooch it a little closer, but let's find out. All right, let's go to our graphics. Epic, DLAA. I feel like this game has to be played at DLAA. It doesn't have to be, but it looks a lot better with DLAA because of the hair effects. DLSS on quality, epic settings, 4K. Okay, so here we go. We're walking. We're doing Expedition 33 at 4K plus. Epic settings, DLSS on quality. We're doing 48 FPS. And this right here, this is why you want G-Sync. This is a great example of little micro tears and screen tears happening. All right, so 47 FPS, 41 for a 1% low. The game is absolutely playable at this frame rate at 4K. It doesn't look the smoothest ever. And when you're trying to counter enemies, you want, I think, over 60 FPS in this game for sure. Probably 90 would be your ideal target. All right, so let's just go like this. And there's a lot of little, you have to pause it to see it, probably. And it's not terrible. This is actually, there's not that much screen tearing going on, actually. Let's turn on VSync and see how that affects things.
So the VSync gets rid of the tearing, the little blurring that was happening because of the tearing effects on the little micro details. VSync helps with that, but it also increases your input lag. So it makes your input lag worse. So when you're countering enemies, parrying enemies, you're gonna have to parry at a little bit different timing, for example. All right, let's turn VSync off again. And we're gonna go to QHD plus. So we got 47, 41 at 4K. All right, here we go. We are walking, same area, 71 FPS. So this is right in line with a lot of the other laptops on the market. The Legion Pro 7i, I believe, got 74 in this test. And like I said, the Pro 7i, I think, is using more than 175 watts, probably like 200 watts. So, but like the Scar 18, I think, got 69 or 70 in this test. So we're right in line with the Scar 18. All right, 69, 57. Performance is good. This is a lot smoother. I would probably just play this at QHD. I mean, like legitimately, it looks good. Like visually at QHD plus, it's hard to see any fine detail loss on a screen that's only 18 inches. So, and this display does display QHD content quite well without it looking non-native. So I would probably, like I said, I would probably just play this at QHD plus for a lot of the games if it's difficult to run, like this one is at 4K, or increase the upscaling. Those are really your only two options. But 6957 is our result for QHD. Counter-Strike 2. Let's do low preset. Good. And oh, let's get frame view going too. Yes. Okay, so right now we're doing 4K low. Wow, 4K low. Even at 4K, we're able to do 380 FPS, 400 FPS. Holy smokes. So, I mean, if you did have a 4K 400 hertz refresh rate display, you could actually use it. So, absolutely excellent performance in Counter-Strike 2 on low settings. 421.4, 173.8 for a 1% low. So, at 4K, we are killing it. Let's do our QHD test. So, QHD, we're doing 500 FPS, 1% low of 180. Of course, this is the Intel 285HX, so the slightly higher clocked and slightly higher speed Intel CPU. 600 FPS there, looking up at the sky, 400, 500. Obviously, excellent FPS, no issues here playing the game. But the 9955 HX3D, for example, is doing 600, 700 FPS instead of 400 to 500. So 537.6, 182.3. So very good performance on the low preset at QHD as well. But ultimately, it doesn't make that big of a difference going from 4K to QHD in a game like Counter-Strike. It's a very CPU-centric game. All right, so everything is on Ultra except for path tracing is off. 4K benchmark, let's go. All right, so 69 FPS, 30 for our 1% low. We're nailing the 177 watts on the GPU. Average FPS is going to be playable, but this is with frame gen on, so I would want more than 90 FPS, and we had it going. I don't know, did the laptop just turn off? I think the laptop just crashed. The laptop just went to sleep. It didn't do it. It didn't crash. It just went to sleep. Interesting. All right, so we're looking at 69.3 FPS at 4K. Cyberpunk anyway. How's the fan noise and temperature on the keyboard? It's excellent. The Raider is designed to handle gaming at high performance levels without the wrist rest getting very warm. Um, I would say in terms of temperatures, this is completely cold. This little inch or so before the keyboard is slightly warm. And then the actual WASD keys only have a slight warmth to them. This over here is warm, warm. And then the rest of this is cool. It's very good actual temperatures for QHD plus. So keep in mind that the 1% low here is bugged. We're doing actually closer to 100 for our 1% low, but it's showing 50. And that's because of the frame generation. All right. Nas says, I just watched a video from another YouTuber in my country that said the Titan 18HX AI with 95090 is having an issue about overheating on keyboard and really not comfortable with gaming. Interesting. Well, maybe that's the case. Maybe if you're in a really hot ambient environment temperature, but not in my air-conditioned room at all. It's very, very cool. But this is also not a Titan. The Titan has a slightly different thermal because it has a vapor chamber, and this utilizes heat pipes. So it's not exactly a one-to-one comparison. The Raider, like I said, is a little different than the Titan. So, but this Raider is definitely very cool to the touch. Okay, so we got 11629. Very good, obviously. Doom Dark Ages is next. No path tracing, but we are going to do Ultra Nightmare. Frame gen at 2x DLSS on quality at 4K, and then again at QHD+. All right, sweet. So we're actually getting 90 FPS. Benchmark with frame view at the same time this time to get our accurate 1% low. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Chuka chuka chuka. Currently doing 95 FPS. Putting this into the playable range for sure. All right, 0 F10. There's our benchmarking results. 96, 82. So excellent results. We're going to go down to QHD plus, DLSS on quality, 2x, Ultra Nightmare. 153 FPS, 68 for 1% lows, 65 degrees on the GPU, 80 on the CPU. Benchmarking summary, 160, 139 for our 1% low is really good. Let's move to Elder Scrolls Oblivion. All right, so we're gonna go to Ultra Ray Tracing, DLSS on quality. All right, and just to verify, we are at 4K, right? Yeah, we're at 4K. Let's go to full screen mode. All right. Boom, boom, and we're walking. So Elder Scrolls Oblivion, very popular game right now. I think it sold like 10 million. 83 average, 65 for a 1% low at 4K. So almost your ideal frame rate. This is a very demanding area though. Probably the most important thing I would say to keep in mind is it's a very demanding area. Now we go to QHD. All right, our benchmark got 131, 105. Excellent, excellent. And again, even at QHD plus resolution, this is looking really good. Visually speaking, just a little bit. You can see it on the screen when there's lines overlapping a little bit here and there, like on the building edges. It's very minor when you're getting such a consistent good frame rate. It just easily, quickly disappears pretty much instantly. Hogwarts Legacy is next. We're doing 4K, DLSS on quality. Everything is set to ultra, set to max. And this is Hogwarts, and it's been revamped recently. So that's the thing I would say to keep in mind is that you should not expect, can't expect comparable performance between this and previous Oh, maybe they optimized it better. I don't know. It seems to be running pretty dang well right now, especially for 4K. Oh my gosh. Maybe it's because we're so CPU bound. I'm used to seeing less than 100 FPS sometimes, even at QHD. And we're doing 120 with the 4K, so that's excellent. Must be the memory speed and CPU optimization seems to be very good here. We're doing 26 gigs of memory right now, but pretty much no stutters. This frame time graph is also cut in half. It's closer to 80 or 75 probably for our 1% lows. You can see frame view up here showing the correct 1% low. And we'll be using frame view to do our benchmark, our official benchmark result. Wow, at 4K, absolutely excellent performance. Here we go. We're running through Hogsmeade. Gonna get a butterbeer. Yum, 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 yum. All right. We got 120/67 at 4K. Oh, that's so good. I'm really surprised. That is very good. I guess we're going to change our Windows resolution to QHD. Hogwarts. Benchmark activated. Our cape right now, look at it, it's like bugged. All right. There we go. And the results are 197.94. Those are great 1% lows. And I can tell you, visually speaking, it looks really good and it's extremely smooth. God of War. I would say probably it just went to sleep again. We're going to check for a BIOS update because this is such odd behavior. And it feels like this is a big enough issue they would have fixed it with a BIOS update. Well, we're doing Windows updates now. Wait, what? Report basically NVIDIA driver software has encountered an issue. I wonder if these things are turning off because of the NVIDIA driver. Right, so they just updated the BIOS yesterday. Let's download it. Let's see. All right. N Chapman says overheating. Ouch. I don't think the laptop's overheating. I think something else is going on. I mean, this is a good test because MSI has a history of bad BIOS updates. So let's see if their update process has been improved at all. So yeah. All right, display. We're at QHD, DLSS on quality, graphics is on ultra. All right, here we go. (120 FPS). 127.94. Now I gotta go in here and change it to 4K again. At 4K, 88 FPS. Very impressive. Okay, 93.77 at 4K. You only lose 30 frames per second jumping from QHD to 4K. That is crazy impressive. Let's go to Starfield. Dynamic resolution off. Borderless full screen. All right. DLSS quality, frame gen on. 67% render scale. Okay, well, it'll be fine for benchmarking at 4K. All right, 99, 87. Let's start walking. Whoa, 60 degrees on the GPU. It's very crazy good. Very GPU bound, which makes sense. We're doing 4K, right? So frame gen is on, so we're hitting right near the baseline 90 FPS goal. We ended up with 8973. So it's definitely gonna be playable, but wow, yeah, like look at that. The screen tearing is very apparent to my eyes, okay? I can see the screen tear happening all the time in this game. This is a game where G-Sync would be like big time help. We can't enable V-Sync. I don't know why. So we got 89 at 4K. Let's go to 2560 by 1600. 2560 by 1600, correct. So we're at QHD plus resolution. Off we go. 147 down to 143. As we get into the city here now. Averaging 137. FPS is going down as we get a little bit more CPU bound. GPU utilization dropping to 95 there. Has all these NPCs and everything come into play. 137, 103. Now we have a higher frame rate at QHD, and the screen tearing is a lot less apparent. But it is still there when you move very fast. But 137, that's a big bump up from 89. Ray tracing ultra preset, DLSS to quality. Whoa. All right. So with frame gen on, we're still only getting 67 FPS. That's not great. It's still playable, but it's not great. And in a game like this, again, just reminder, look at the screen tearing. You can see the smearing on the live stream. It's quite bad. It looks that way to my eye. It does not look very smooth, very good. Now, this game should have VSync. Yes, to enable VSync, you have to turn off frame gen. And when you turn off frame gen, you get 43 FPS. And it still looks pretty meh. So if you want to do 4K in this game with VSync, you're probably going to want to turn off ray tracing. That should get us to our 60 FPS. There we go. All right. Things are tearing a lot less now. Can you tell when I go up and down? Like the building and the edges here don't go over top of each other, right? Just look at that. Like the building edges are staying consistent. If I go to turn off VSync, now it's just, when you look around, it looks like a blurry mess until you stop and look one direction for a half second. If I were to actually optimize this, I would turn off ray tracing, probably play on 4K. All right, here we go. We still have to test QHD resolution though. So we have comparable benchmarks. So 4K, 70 FPS, but like I said, frame gen is enabled, so we're actually getting more like 40 something. and we ended up with 6958. It's definitely playable, but there's too much input lag to have an enjoyable experience. So if I were to optimize this, let's go medium DLSS to either quality or maybe balanced. All right, now look at us, 120 FPS, 4K upscaling, game is responsive, extremely fluid. The screen tearing and everything becomes much more minimal when you're getting 120 FPS. So the key thing without G-Sync or being in the play is you got to know how to optimize your games to get in, over 100 FPS. Then things look way better. Right. Yeah, I think this is actually about right. So 113 starting out. Now we're getting up there in our FPS in the 120s. Yeah, it should be closer to around 125 to 130 range is normal for this GPU. And resolution. And look at our temperatures. Again, 62 degrees, 74. Can we shut mod this thing and put some more power through it? Likely. And notice that we have not had the laptop fall asleep on us again since we updated the BIOS. Don't know if that was the official reason that was causing the sleep issues. This is a ultra high performance, ultra premium gaming laptop from MSI. Costs over $4,000 for retail price point. And it has some glaring flaws, but also some very great aspects to it as well. So the biggest flaw is the bloom on the mini LED display. I showcased this against an OLED as well as the Scar 18 mini LED. There's more bloom on this compared especially to the Scar. In brighter environments, you don't notice it that much. And also I think the camera picks up the bloom more than the human eye does. I would say that that is the biggest negative to this laptop. The other big negative is screen tearing because this does not have G-Sync and it doesn't have Advanced Optimus, so you have to restart a little more often, but the screen tearing can be very, very noticeable in some games and hardly noticeable in others. Screen tearing aspect here is not a deal breaker for advanced users. Casual users who don't know what they're doing though will be like, why is my game screen tearing? Why are these weird artifacts on here? It doesn't happen to other laptops. So that's why I recommend MSI to get G-Sync back on these laptops. Performance-wise, very good performance in basically everything we tested today. And very optimized game performance in particular across the entire game suite was above average compared to the other RTX 5080s I've tested. Performance was great. Upgradability was great. Thermals were like amazing. We were getting like in the 60s for almost all the games on max fans. If we didn't have max fans, then obviously the fan noise would be way less and the performance would still be about the same, but temperatures would probably be 10 degrees warmer or something, depending on what you set for the fans. But MSI Raider 18HX, if you can deal with the screen tearing and you don't mind some bloom on the display, it's a great laptop. Those are the two basically Achilles heels of this machine. If MSI fixes those two things, this thing's just got great cooling, great ports, great keyboard, trackpad, glass, feels very good and very clickable. The display, when you're not looking at dark stuff, is amazing, and the webcam is decent. Lots of I/O and lots of great premium features on this, including the improved speakers. I mean, there's not a lot to hate about this machine, and there's a lot to love. There's just those like couple of key things that are like dagger in the heart for some people. So if you're one of those people, definitely skip this one and go to the next one. But if you can get by without G-Sync and without the bloom being a deal breaker, then yeah, this is a great machine for you. And that is going to vary a lot from person to person though. So your mileage will vary with the MSI Raider 18HX, but it's not at the top of my recommended laptop list for this year because especially the lack of G-Sync and the bloom on the 4K display. If you can buy this with the QHD 240Hz IPS display, you won't have bloom
And the fact that it's 240 hertz will make the lack of G-Sync even less of a big deal. So then it becomes even, I think, a little bit more realistic as a top contender in the market. Okay, see you in the next one. Brandon, out.